So shortly after I moved here, I got plugged into Hoboken Grace. A guy that I worked with at the time actually invited me to the dinner group that he was a part of. And so over the course of the next several months, I got to build relationships with some of the guys in the group. I was contributing to discussion a little bit where I could. And then later that year, the guy that was leading the dinner group at the time, Ryan, he asked me to meet with him and wanted to see if I was interested in joining his team potentially and being an apprentice under him, with the idea of, in the next several months, potentially starting my own dinner group. You know, when you think about leadership, one of the first things that comes to mind, at least for me, is all the practical things that I want to get trained in so that I could be proficient at my job and my task ahead. But one of the things that you don't prepare for or anticipate are all the lies that come into your head that you have to battle associated with being a leader. So really my initial thought upon being asked that question was, no, you're crazy. I had just graduated school not too long ago. I was an adult, like legally speaking, but these guys in my group, they were grown men. Some of them, they had families of their own. A lot of them had been on this journey a lot longer than I had. What's a 23, 24-year-old kid like me possibly gonna have to offer these guys as a dinner group leader? So those were the lies that initially came to mind. That was my first thought. But, you know, my second thought was, okay, those things are all fine and well, but what if God is nudging me in a particular direction and I choose to ignore it? And how was I gonna know if he was nudging me in that direction if I didn't at least pursue it? And so with those questions ultimately in mind, I decided to say yes. And I remember those lies immediately kicking in as I started to lead. And so I distinctly remember the first time that I led discussion, I really wanted to prove to these guys that I could be their leader and that I could hang. And so I came up with my own questions for discussion, and I answered my own questions a certain way just to show that I was cool and that I could be their leader. And I mean, I thought it was cool at the time, but really looking back on it, it was just awkward and not a reflection of who I actually was. So really going through that apprenticeship process, meeting with some of the leaders on the team and doing some soul searching myself, just an underlying theme that came out of it was, you're not gonna be the hero in these guys' lives. You know, even if you wanted to be, that's not your place. One of the whole ideas behind dinner group leadership is not to be the hero in these guys' stories, but to point them to the hero in their stories, which is Christ. And so I finished the apprenticeship process several months later, and I led my own dinner group. And, you know, really, I have to battle those same lies today, even after leading several years later of, am I confident enough? Am I smart enough? Am I mature enough to lead a group of men? And I know that ultimately I'm gonna fall short, but I have to constantly remind myself that my identity is in Christ and not in how well that I'm able to lead. And so what I learned over time is that God wasn't calling me to be an expert or to take on all these lies that I thought leadership was about. He was just calling me to be obedient and to take a step. And I think as you say yes to all those little steps over time, yes, you're gonna be drawn out of your comfort zone, you're gonna be uncomfortable, but I think in the end, you're gonna grow. And there's no other place I'd rather see that played out than with my guys in dinner group every Monday night.